Hello divers! Today's book review is about the psychology of teaching recreational scuba diving, one of the several books written by Dr. Mark Luxon, an expert diving instructor with a PhD in psychology. The book title doesn't leave any room for misunderstanding. It is not a book for, let's call them, normal divers, whether they are experts or beginners. It's not a book concerning the classic exercises and techniques we have learned to qualify as divers, or that we would like to learn to improve our skills. It's a book for those who have the responsibility to teach or guide divers concerning, in the author's own words, practical psychology. We believe that this is the kind of arguments that urgently need to be addressed, especially considering that the diving community has clearly chosen its direction to involve as many people as possible in scuba diving, even the less interested and predisposed. But while we strongly believe that the focus must be on divers, who are also the source of the instructors of tomorrow, the author focuses his attention straight on them. Yet with this substantial difference, the main idea is the same. If the exercises we have to learn are the same at any world corner, and basically among any teaching diving agency, and to be honest, not even particularly difficult to teach or perform, then the real games, what makes it possible to achieve better or worse results, are not played by these techniques, but by something else.
Of course, this different perspective from the divers to their teachers changes a lot the issues from where to start, the necessary considerations through the path, and even the final results, making the book less interesting for what we have just called the normal divers. As well knows anyone who has followed our course, the method. We believe that talking about instructors is important, but not as important as talking straight about divers. Still paying this tax, the book remains a source of considerations that are difficult to be found in mostly traditional diving training, and this makes its analysis and sharing worthwhile. But we have to remember that while the suggestions of the author are applicable at all levels of scuba diving training, in his book he mainly refers to classic open water dive scenarios. This means he mainly refers to divers with no experience at all, and with a low level of practical and theoretical knowledge. On the contrary, our typical viewer is an already certified diver, therefore with at least some basic experience and knowledge under the belt, especially the practical one that can be gained only after having personally experienced what scuba diving really is. This practical knowledge should help to understand what could be shifted and reused into our future experience and what remains only interesting information.
We could split the book in two parts of approximately the same extension. The first part of the book is dedicated to discovering the weapons at the disposal of instructors, while the second one is dedicated to the application of the just learned weapons to the typical scenarios that all instructors and students face during any basic course. Examples include meeting and greeting, asking for payment, the first session of theory, of confined and open water, the first dive from the boat, and so on. And among the weapons and some interesting considerations, we have identified 5 helpful issues not only for instructors, but also for what we have called the normal divers. Let's us see them together.
The first point is cause and remedy of stress. According to the author's definition, situations do not generate stress on their own. The cause of stress is the lack of control in a given situation, whether this lack is real or just perceived. Still, according to the author's thought, with which we only but agree, scuba diving intrinsically generates stress. And for someone, even just thinking about diving generates stress. Stressed divers cannot focus enough to learn or to apply what they have learned, and having full control of the situation we are facing is the condition to fully enjoy and gain from our dives. To avoid or to keep at an acceptable level, divers need to have control of what generates the stress. From the author's perspective, which mainly analyzes the typical situation of a basic course, having a completely beginner diver without any knowledge and experience, it is the instructor's responsibility to create the conditions in which divers will feel to have enough control.
But for already certified divers, things might be different. Certified divers who have followed our course. know what the risks are of leaving our future diving experience completely in the hands of instructors. On the contrary, they also understand the advantages of taking this responsibility into our own hands. By this perspective, this means that the diver must help him or herself finding a way to regain control in the situations that generate stress. Yet, whether it is the instructor or directly the diver who is in charge of keeping stress at an affordable level, the strategy remains the same. In both cases, the goal is to manage and balance the stress, maintaining it at a level that allows divers to productively focus on the skills of the moment.
The second element we believe is worthy of special consideration, and which in the context of the book serves as a weapon against the just identified stress, is the social support from other people. By author definition, social support is the simple presence of someone that can reassure or encourage us. In a diving course, the instructor is the alpha component of the group, and this puts her or him in the right position to exert this type of force if able. Many divers could confirm that what was difficult with one instructor becomes easy with another instructor. An instructor using the right social support synergically with a bit of organization and knowledge can change the course of a diving career and experience, even in a single dive. Of course, it would be nice to leave our future diving experience quality in the hands of an instructor able to easily pave our path. But the truth is that we might be so lucky to meet an instructor able to do it, or, as many times happened, we could not be so lucky. Is a risk to decide to depend on someone that could not even arrive. Social support is an external source of help that doesn't depend on us. It is a gift received from outside, and on it, we have no control at all.
Social support able to push us to the right direction is either an innate quality or the result of a targeted study. In both cases, there is not guarantee that our instructor is in possession of these qualities. In our courses, we have learned how to deal with these issues. Social support is the external source of help weighted from those who passively believe others will solve their problems. On the contrary, motivation is the internal source of those who act actively to achieve goals. Motivation is the engine of improvement. If we are motivated enough, we do not need social support. It is good if it arrives, but it is not indispensable.
The third element we have identified as helpful is the mental imagery technique. It is not news for us, and in our channel and courses, we use the term visualization or even visualization technique, referring to the same thing. We usually hear about mental imagery from athletes and coaches, as well as from actors and managers and even more, all at the top level of their respective fields. All recognize its significant importance, potentially capable of changing a career, even the career and experience of a diver. This time we hear it from a qualified psychologist, which is also an experienced diving instructor. According to the author's words, we actually train by imagining, and the secret is to agree and believe it, to make the skill or activity imagined feel as real as possible, vivid.
The example given by the author gives us the opportunity to remind that there is not a single way to use this technique. In this case, since the book is intended for instructors who, by definition, must teach something the student has never practiced before, a more structured approach may be necessary. Therefore, more similar to a step-by-step process, with proper instructions, details, and chronological accuracy. On the other hand, referring to already certified divers who by definition possess at least minimal experience, visualization could be a more free and instinctive flow of images already lived or details already known that we would like to achieve, a sort of daydream. And as reported by top-level professionals in different fields, there are also other ways to use this technique. Much could be said about this technique, but the important thing is that it is considered a powerful technique in almost all fields and at every level of performance. It is short-sighted not to give it at least a chance.
Flexible teaching. The author believes that instructors must be flexible when teaching divers. While we can only but agree with this affirmation, the example used by the author gives us the opportunity to point out an important consideration on which we do not agree with the author. The used example is probably the most nominated exercise in the history of recreational scuba diving, the clearing mask. The author says that students performing this exercise must be able to clear the water from a flooded mask, no more, no less, and how to teach this is up to the instructor. By the author's opinion, it is not a drama if a student doesn't follow the cleaning mask procedure agreed during the briefing. And to the question, should the instructor stop a student that is not following step by step the procedure? His answer is a clear, of course not. What matters is that the students can clear their mask.
Surely, there is a difference between a student at the beginning of his course, maybe at his first attempt to clear a mask, and a student at the end of the same course, with more or less 5 to 15 done repetitions. The real beginner is more justified if he cannot adhere to the agreed procedure, or the bit more expert one is less justified. That being said, it's one thing to decide beforehand which solution or procedure to adopt, preferring one over another, but it's an entirely different story once the path is chosen, not being able to follow it. Aiming only for the final result, without considering the process, is a way to justify lower quality results. And while this may be understandable in the beginning, it certainly is not, from our point of view, in the medium and long term. Being able to stick to the predetermined procedure, whatever it may be, is the only way we have to reasonably ensure that we will be able to repeat the same exercise in real diving scenarios.
When we clear the mask without following the predetermined procedure, receiving the okay from our instructor, we are trusting his judgment as an industry expert. But at the same time, this is depriving us of the future possibility of understanding for ourselves whether we are performing well or not. Taking this concept to its extreme, survival becomes the only benchmark and judgment. I survived, so I did well. If the only thing that matters is the end result, we will never be able to standardize and automate our actions. Automating means having such mastery that we can practically perform them without effort, sometimes even without voluntary thought. The opposite of standardization is to act any time differently, almost randomly, sometimes even by luck. Acting randomly, we will never be able to judge our own exercise. The level of adherence to this concept obviously depends on the level of our training. But if not yet able to do so, the goal should be to become able to do what is planned, then to achieve complete mastery of it. If it has to be repeatable, it is probably automatable. If it is automatable, then it is standardizable. In real diving scenarios, not during a course, we can decide to act differently, but just do our free choice and not do our poor training.
The last point we would like to highlight is to avoid chronicism. A wise suggestion that we can transfer from typical open water course scenarios to our dives, and that, in some way, could be directly connected also to the just mentioned inability to follow a procedure, is what the author calls dealing with students who go up. The author refers to students on their first dives in waters so shallow to allow them to reach the surface alone if they feel they need it, whatever is by swimming or simply by standing up. He emphasizes that in this case, instructors need to intervene as soon as possible, before a movie full of dangers and injuries start into the diver mind. A stressed diver would probably focus more on stress and consequences than on solution and future enjoyment. In an open water course, this scenario often ends with the student quitting the course, even more probably when there are two divers in trouble speaking together. The same applies to already certified divers facing issues. If something gives us a problem, it's better to address it before it worsens, such as with the clearing the mask, which in many cases can become an almost hysterical issue.
Our typical viewers are certified divers, either looking for solutions to overcome stress and fear, or more simply, divers who want to push their skills a step forward, closer to their excellence. And in conclusion, we would suggest this book to them. The book does what it promises, offering the instructor perspective and a wide range of helpful considerations in a clear and ordered sequence. With a bit of work, many of these considerations could be shifted to the perspective of what we have called normal divers, not just students, even already certified divers. At the end, it remains that it is not a book specifically written for certified divers, and not many complaints can be moved to it if we were looking for something that was not in the intent of the author. Having said that, even if certified divers will not find here all what they need, or the definitive answer to their needs, the book is an interesting read, which is also, by author's words, short and easy. Many divers quit diving short time after had started diving due to unsolved problems, untreated stress or fear, or like the author would say, due lack of control. If the reader is disposed to work a bit, to change the perspective from instructor to diver, many considerations became valuable. In this case, we would suggest this book.
Thank you for watching. Please find in the description a link to download a written takeaway of this video, as well as the references of the book and the author. Remember that by clicking on the bell and by subscribing, you will be informed about new videos, while by sharing and giving a like to this video, you will help to spread greater awareness among divers.